Our first speaker here after the break is the founder of the Green Marketing Academy. Her name is Mayther, and she's going to be presenting about sustainable packaging. Michelle, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to dive into the pivotal roles that both businesses and organizations and consumers play when it comes to steering innovations towards sustainable packaging. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to connect with yet, my name is Michelle Mayther. I am a business owner, a fractional chief marketing officer, and the founder of the Green Marketing Academy. We are an educational platform that offers courses, certifications, and customized trainings to marketing professionals and businesses who wish to adopt more sustainable practices. Oops. I am born and raised in San Diego. I live in Seattle, where I've resided for the last 7 years. And I got my start, or in my interest in sustainable marketing, from my early career in corporate marketing, just witnessing all of the waste that was produced at conferences and trade shows like this. I decided then and there to dedicate a portion of my business to educating others on this topic. I first want to set the stage with this. According to the World Counts, packaging makes up 1/3 or more of our trash. And while it's important that we prioritize innovations in this space, it's also a responsibility to make sure that we understand the full scope of this. Recycling alone, as we've heard today, doesn't solve the problem, and we can't keep recycling our way out of this packaging problem. So this should be the key focus of our daily decision-making, both as businesses and consumers. But the good news is sustainable packaging innovations are on the rise. Again, recycling alone isn't enough. It just is taking one item, placing it in another location, and inevitably it goes to the landfill. And second, a concern around packaging, as we've heard from many of you today, is around the cost. But many are recognizing the value in making small incremental changes rather than waiting for a perfect economical solution. And finally, we'll touch more on this later, but the end-of-life considerations play perhaps the most vital role in businesses wanting to integrate this into their strategies moving forward. Now, while I could easily nerd out for hours on all of the cool material innovations that are happening, I picked out just a few that I wanted to share with you. Water-soluble materials are super cool, and they are being tested in the consumer package industry. Brands like SmartSolve are pioneering this, and basically these materials are available in a variety of thicknesses and formats, and they don't necessarily dissolve in water, but they dissipate and are able to be flushed down a drain or put in water. Another that is more widely known is mycelium or mushroom packaging, and its claim to fame is that it's strong, it's durable, and it decomposes more quickly. So we've probably seen some of this used in the beauty space in the last couple of years. And then finally, seaweed packaging is growing in popularity because it can grow in both fresh and salt water and doesn't require any additional chemicals for its growth. There's a company up in Northern California named Sway. Definitely check them out if you haven't heard of them, because they're coming to market with some really cool innovations in the apparel space. So, as far as a starting point, before we dive in, I want to formally define sustainable packaging. Many of us in this room can probably recite this by heart, but as the EPA states, it refers to the design, the sourcing, and the use of the packaging materials that aim to reduce waste, conserve resources, and again, just reduce the overall carbon footprint. But beyond this generally simple definition, there are 3 areas of focus that I really want to touch on today because they deserve equal consideration. First, it means prioritizing the use of recyclable, reusable materials, and it should also be manufactured using sustainable processes, and more on that later. We should also ensure that the amount of resources used to produce the packaging doesn't actually exceed the footprint that it's intended to save, because that's, at the end of the day, a wash. And it's no surprise that the demand for sustainable packaging has become even more important. And we should ensure that the recent data even shows that over 80% of consumers across age demographics have a willingness to pay more for sustainable packaging. And an even more eye-opening fact from CalRecycle reports that Californians alone throw away over 280 Olympic-sized pools of plastic every single day. And we've heard many statistics throughout the day that are just eye-opening like this. And although a majority of companies continue to push the recycling message, this doesn't, again, solve the problem. So whether you own a business or are part of an organization, there are several measures that can be taken to initiate the adoption of sustainable packaging. To prove that this isn't simply an elusive concept, let's examine a recent case study from Kearney. They reported on a survey of 150 companies that shows that those with circular economy measures, including a focus on sustainable packaging, performed significantly better than those that did not. And just to share a few, 32% of businesses experienced an increase in revenue, while 38% were able to cut costs. But perhaps the most impressive statistic is that 70% received higher brand recognition as a result of their efforts. So the key takeaway here is this is just a result of feel-good greenwashing. It's driven entirely by demand. So again, one of the steps that you can take, and a first way that businesses can play into this more, is to do your due diligence before working with different manufacturers and partners. And it's important to remember that their practices can reflect on your own brand image or reputation. So here are a few questions to consider asking potential partners. First, do they conserve and save energy by optimizing the machinery or equipment that they use? Are solar, wind, or other renewable sources of energy being used throughout the process? And do they have the right procedures in place to reduce the amount of waste that's being produced in creating this packaging? And again, this list is obviously not the end-all be-all, but it's a great starting point to ask some of those questions. When designing packaging, there are also a few key factors to consider. First, focus on minimizing waste. I think it was Matthew that touched on this earlier. Try experimenting with the product positioning to optimize the space around it, whether you're packaging materials that go into packaging or the product itself. And though it's best practice to limit the amount of material being used in general, we can't forget that the packaging also has to be durable enough to survive transit and delivery and everything in between. And I also want to make a quick note that you can absolutely still deliver a memorable brand experience without using a lot of unnecessary fillers, plastics, etc. There's a lot of compostable shipping solutions that have just come to market even in the last 5 years or so. And you can also talk to Matthew about that. So as we've already touched on before, packaging has a life before, during, and after, whether it sits on a shelf at home, in a store, or in a warehouse. A life cycle assessment is the principal method for measuring the environmental footprint of packaging. This involves collecting and analyzing data shown in all the different stages here, and this can vary with time and cost commitment depending on your business size or organization. But they provide extremely valuable insight on which methods of packaging and formats will make the most impact, both in terms of profit and the reduction of waste. So here are a few ways that you can take action behind these concepts that I've shared. From my own experience, I do recommend working with or bringing on a sustainability consultant to help you navigate this process. There's so many intricacies and nuances that come up during this process that you don't want something that could have been prevented to negatively impact your bottom line or worse, your reputation. Every step of the way, it's critical to make sure that your activities are shared and aligned with your customer service team, your marketing team, and your sales team, again, just to prevent any unintentional greenwashing from occurring. It's a fact that a majority of US consumers, and I'm not speaking directly to everyone in this room, but we don't have clarity on what is sustainable packaging. For many of us, we didn't learn this in school, and I'm so glad to see all the initiatives happening with Emerald Keepers and some of the other youth organizations. But most of us see the words compostable or plant-based, and we just assume that this is the most sustainable form of packaging. But again, it only goes as far as the local infrastructure that exists to either compost or recycle these materials. So as far as taking action as a consumer, and again, I am not up here to assign all the blame on, us as individuals can do better, but we do play a part because we're making these decisions multiple times every day. So voting for bills that are focused on reducing waste, SB 54 and a lot of other legislation that was mentioned today is a great first step. Get involved, make sure you educate yourself, and you vote in the local elections. And then if you recognize a brand that is committing to these sustainable packaging practices, shout them out on social media. Show your appreciation for them. Like a brand like Dr. Bronner's, they're doing incredible things. So conversely, if brands aren't making an effort, reach out to them, ask questions, and leave them a review to get their attention, in a respectful way, of course. And the bottom line is, we can all take steps on a daily basis to be a more conscious consumer, as was talked about today numerous times. So to wrap us up, here just are some quick key takeaways that I want to leave you with today. So first and foremost, we can't simply view sustainable packaging as a trend, but rather a long-term strategy to cut costs and increase brand recognition. And on the consumer side, our behavior and more importantly, our feedback is the true catalyst for change. And last, this was mentioned earlier too, vote with your dollar. Do your best to support the brands that are taking these commitments seriously for more sustainable packaging moving forward. Thank you so much. If you'd like to connect with me, there's a QR code that takes you to our website to talk more about what we offer. You can follow us on LinkedIn, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.